Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Tour Catch-Up,
Rafa announces retirement from tennis.
Sinner secures seventh title of the season in Shanghai.
And Wimbledon removes line judges for the first time in its 147-year history.
Kim, Chris, today is the 14th of October, and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. And whilst there is so much tennis to talk about from the last week, the biggest news in the last 7 days has been a dramatic announcement that we feared might be coming at some point this season. 22-time Slam champion Rafael Nadal has announced his retirement from tennis, with his last event set to be at the Davis Cup Finals in Malaga. Elsewhere, Jannik Sinner secured yet another title this season in Shanghai. Aryna Sabalenka taking the spoils in Wuhan, and Wimbledon announced they are getting rid of line umpires. Lots and lots of debate there, guys. Much to discuss as always, but I like the fact that order has been restored. We're back on a Monday. The tour schedule is back as well in its usual spot, and we've got Kim back as well. However, Kim, as much as I would like to say all order has been restored, there has also been some disorder as well.
Yes, I can't believe Rafa had the tenacity to announce his retirement on my week off. I was on holiday and then got the announcement.
The dreaded announcement.
Wasn't expecting it to come this particular week, that particular day. I mean, you both have done an exclusive kind of immediate reaction, which listeners, if you've not seen or heard, then go check it out.
You were in too much distress to join us.
Were you just on holiday?
Or were you just on the beach?
In Mallorca?
I was on a sun lounger by the pool in Ibiza, actually. I was on the other Balearic island,
yes.
not the right one.
Not Rafa's,
not
no.
Rafa's one. But no, I was enjoying a nice virgin pina colada by the pool.
Oh, okay.
And then
so did that make it better, the news, when it broke?
I think I just used the excuse to kind of treat myself that day.
Drown your sorrows in virgin pina coladas.
Exactly. I mean, truth be told, though, it was surprising to suddenly hear it, last week, but it wasn't a surprise overall, because I think, he's been obviously alluding to it. He'd said last year that end of 2024 likely to be the finale. And I think it's right that next month, Malaga, Davis Cup Finals, it seems like an appropriate time to call it a day at home, in front of home fans in Spain, hopefully helping Spain to do well and maybe take home another Davis Cup title.
Yeah, it would be lovely, wouldn't it? I think when we first talked about it and reacted to it, it was that emotional video that we were really going off, and we didn't really have time to process it. But obviously you've watched it now, and we did say, Kim, you're Spanish. You probably didn't need the subtitles like Joel and I did. But what was your reaction when you saw that? Did you get emotional?
Yeah, it's hard not to, because, I don't think it's a secret, but he's my favourite player of all time. Probably always will be, unless, someone's got to really, got to live up to Rafa, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah, I did get emotional. And I think seeing, the reaction of like Roger Federer as well, and just those images of going around the internet about Federer's retirement and all the tears, and, are we going to see something similar this time round as well with Rafa? So,
emotional, yes, but not a tear. I'm trying to get Kim to cry on the podcast on YouTube right now. Yeah, but we might get more views.
Self-conscious for that.
Just keeping it together, listeners.
Yes, I'm keeping it together. But maybe, we'll see if we can, see his
keep it together in Malaga. Yeah,
performance. Yeah, we'll hope. Here's hoping we'll see that.
Kim, what do you hope from the Nadal send off in Malaga? What do you hope to see?
Some churros.
Shakira singing.
Shakira would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, Shakira would be appropriate. I hope. I mean, Djokovic is turning up, although questionably we think it's because he trains.
I think he's there anyway. That's my theory, because I think when Dan Evans trained with him, he had to fly out to Malaga, so I think he's just going to pop around the corner.
I'm gutted that we didn't get a poem from Djokovic. He wrote a really nice, lovely kind of Instagram message, but I was maybe thinking we could write a poem like he did for Yelena, something.
Not a haiku. We didn't even get that, did we?
If you want me to, in absence of a poem from Djokovic, I'm happy to write a poem.
Oh, an English language degree.
Maybe a lim. Can I just do a limerick? Can we just make it a limerick?
Well, listeners, stay tuned. If you can think of a
limerick.
Yeah, next week.
I'm
we'll give him a week.
To that.
Yeah. But it will be quite the spectacle, I'm sure. And I think that we've seen ticket
Mm.
prices have gone astronomical. I actually heard a
Worse
story.
than Oasis tickets.
Worse than Oasis.
Yeah.
Yeah, demand has gone really crazy. But producer Lena told me that she was on a work call and a grown man cried because she broke the news to him and he booked a ticket and ended the call.
Wow.
So maybe not tears
Wow.
from us, but I mean, the impact is huge. And I think that seeing how big the story is globally, not just in the tennis community in this last week, has just showed you just what an icon he is and universal household name worldwide. So it's going to be big.
I feel that's given me license to be more myself on a work call now, hearing that story.
Or maybe he was too himself, but again, no names are being named. You do you.
Absolutely. But obviously we'll be covering that next month when it actually finally happens. And, you know, I'm curious to see in what way Rafa will remain in tennis, how much he will get involved or how much he's going to stay at home with his family, you know, which obviously are really, really important to him. And so I'm not sure how much we're going to see of him in the immediate aftermath, but I hope, you know, he does feature in some capacity.
He's going to be on a golf course, no, Kim?
Oh, with Andy.
Yeah, yes, him and Andy playing golf.
He's been snapped up on a golf course, hasn't
Pro
he?
AM,
Recently,
yeah, exactly.
Well, there
Could
you go.
be happening.
That's their next career. I'm here for it if they are.
Golfing weekly.
Let's look at what's been happening on the tour as well, because as much as we'd love to talk about Rafa for the next hour, we should probably focus on more recent events on court and off court. So yeah, I'm going to ask you both what's been keeping you amused this past week in the tennis world. Joel, do you want to start us off?
Okay, I'll start off because I think mine's a little bit silly, but a little bit fun at the same time, because I'm sure all of our listeners, all of us as tennis fans, we love when we're watching our favorite quiz show and a tennis question comes up, or actually perhaps we're a little bit nervous because we feel that sense of pressure.
Yes,
that we have to get the question.
I don't feel pressure in tennis
right.
quizzes though. Let's be honest.
No, you just aced half the court.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like lots of people know I'm part of a podcast. There is just like this instant feeling that any question I should absolutely.
Do you get them all right though, Joel?
And no, I definitely do not. But I got a text over the weekend from one of my friends that a quiz show on the BBC, The Wheel. There was a tennis question, and the question was, which Grand Slam tennis tournament typically takes place earliest in the calendar? Is it Wimbledon, US Open, French Open, Australian Open? And I'm sad to say the lady who was asked this question lost £86,000. She said the wrong
Oh my goodness!
answer.
So she lost all of it for that. And did you know the answer?
What did she say?
Unfortunately, I did. Well, actually, yeah. What do you think she said?
I think she probably got the US and Australia mixed up.
That is true. She went with the US Open, which of course is the last Grand Slam.
Couldn't have been more wrong, poor woman.
It'll be very cold in January.
I know. So very, very, very upsetting.
And New York.
But yes, I really felt sympathy for her. But it is one of those where it's like, if you don't know the subject, then it's really tough, and it's easier to look at it when, like, you know, you've been podcasting forever and ever. It feels like
you could eliminate Wimbledon, I'm sure, because she knows that's hot in the summer. At least it's outdoors.
Depends when she's starting her calendar year from. Maybe she's going off like a term time calendar.
Could
for
be
school or
tax
something.
year. Could be tax year.
Tax year, yeah. So there we go. I mean, talking of like going back to golf, if this question was posed to me with golf and like the Masters and their big tournaments, I wouldn't actually have a clue. So.
Let's
say if I didn't go on a quiz show.
I honestly think the worst situation would be like, who wants to be a millionaire? And it's like, phone a friend for a tennis question. And
you have to pick up your phone for that, Joe.
I know. It'd be so much pressure.
It would be.
Well, I'll jump in here. I've got a really nice story to counteract that kind of sad loss of money for that lady. And my nice bit of news is that Garbina Muguruza got married recently to her, well, now husband, Arthur Borges. They got married in a nice ceremony in, I think, Marbella. It was Hollywood kind of themed, nice, intimate.
Not Zumba themed.
not
Zumba and Nuno Borges is what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's not Nuno Borges that she's married, just FYI. But I think what's the most remarkable thing, I didn't actually know the backstory to their relationship. He was like a fan and he approached her to wish her luck for the US Open when she was in New York. They met in Central Park and she said it was love at first sight. And I just thought, oh, that is literally something out of a film.
That is.
Just, it's quite iconic. And maybe they could make that into a film one day. Could be a new.
We're
I know
always
Wimbledon
looking
meets,
for tennis.
like, Made in Manhattan or something.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Who would play? I've seen an image here of. I mean, Muguruza looked incredible, but Carlos Suarez Navarro and Conchita Martinez were there. I mean, who could play those in a film? That would be quite the
trio, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's great to see.
Legends of the game, yeah, Spanish legends. But yeah, she looked lovely, and we wish her all the best going forwards with her marriage. But yeah, what a lovely backstory there. Hope for all the fans out there. You never know.
Yeah, go up to them.
Go up to the player.
That's not great advice. Don't do that. That's
no, don't be weird. Yeah. Please don't be
weird.
Exactly. But Chris, what about you? What's floated your boat this week?
Well, I mean, sounds like he had a lot more luck going up to Garbin Muguruza than Matteo Berrettini had with one of the. I mean, I think they win the chance to walk out with the players. This tiny little girl who he was walking out in China just had no interest in him, and I think it was brutal, but it was quite humbling for him because I'm pretty sure he's used to getting a lot of attention as Hugo Boss model and part-time tennis player Matteo Berrettini.
That's a bit harsh.
That's too harsh. No, he is. I'd like to know where most of his earnings are, though. Is it the Boss contract? Probably. But anyway, he tried to strike up a conversation by saying, like, how old are you? I'm 28. He held up numbers and absolutely not having it. And I thought this was so sweet because she was taking her role so seriously. But I mean, the facial expression on the images is just of absolutely completely nonplussed by the fact he's trying to chat with her. Almost like, leave me alone. And then the commentator said, well, he was holding up a 2 and an 8 because that's the number of coaches his opponent Holger Rune has had in the last couple of years.
That's great. That's a way to break the ice.
Honestly, I've never been happier to tune into tennis TV at that moment because it was probably better than the match.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there with the number of coaches Emma Raducanu's had.
The number of times she's retired this year. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It's all coming out now, isn't it?
We could keep
I
going.
can give you a number.
Double faults.
Give me the question.
In a
double
match.
faults, Coco Gauff in one set. Yeah.
Well, we'll be getting onto that one later. Maybe the little girl had been told not to talk to strange men.
She's a professional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's getting on with
love
her
it.
job.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Straight up professional. Stick to the job.
More professional than some male tennis players, which we'll get onto in the second half. But let's talk about Shanghai, where Berrettini was involved. And let's talk about who won, because Jannik Sinner won the Shanghai tournament. This is his seventh title of the season, which is
third
crazy.
Masters tournament as well.
Second slam, well, 2 slams, 3 Masters titles, and I think 2 500s on top of that as well. Brilliant season. In fact, he's the first man to have won more than 6 titles since 2016. Can you tell me who won, a record 9 titles that year?
Andy Murray. Ooh. I know. It's Andy
Murray. You should know, shouldn't you? It is. Well done.
He went on such a spree that year.
Wow.
I just remember it clear as day.
That was Andy's year. But yeah, Sinner, 7 titles so far this year, beating Novak Djokovic in the final in straight sets, 7-6, 6-3. This is his 4th victory out of the last 5 times he's played Djokovic. Has he got his number now, Joel? Is it kind of, problematic for Djokovic now that he's coming up against Sinner time after time, not winning?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, you also look at the fact that although I think their head-to-head is now 4 apiece, if you look at hard courts as well, I mean, we talk about Novak Djokovic as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, hard court player of all time. But Jannik Sinner is 4-1 against Djokovic on hard courts. And in the final, what I was so impressed by was his serving. I mean, they both served very well in that first set, and it did come down to the tie break. But I mean, Sinner he was such a beast on serve that I don't think Djokovic manufactured one break point. And in that second set, it really did start to tail off for Djokovic, whose, his second serve sort of let him down, while Sinner which I would actually say for Sinner, one of the shots that has been the biggest difference, I think, over the last couple of seasons has been the serve. It's been such a weapon and such a bedrock, I think, of consistency that has really helped him, I think, just, eat up all these titles. And yeah, to me, it's been very, very impressive.
Yeah, and Djokovic wasn't playing badly.
No.
It was just Sinner just outperformed him. And I mean, Djokovic had I think some niggles with his left knee, I think previously.
The knee sleeve was out, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes. But Chris, do you think that was a factor at all in the final?
Well, I mean, Djokovic said kind of afterwards, like looking at the year, that, at some point, you won't win slams every year and maintain your highest levels. I mean, when you think about it, for so many years in a row, he has been winning these titles and he has been playing at his absolute peak. And so I think now he's almost come to terms with the fact that he probably won't be winning a Grand Slam next year. And hopefully he will pick up another title. He'll probably be thinking more in that sort of vein. So I think he's very much of the mindset, if someone plays better tennis than him and beats him, then that's how it will be now. And, he had his day against Alcaraz at the Olympics. That was the one he really wanted. And I'm just pleased that Djokovic is on a court in Shanghai, because I think when he said some of his comments about, his motivation for the end of season finals not being there really at all, I wasn't sure if we'd still see him play Shanghai and play, in Paris. So it's great to see him in a final. And hopefully he will get another title at some point to reach number 100.
Yes, because he is one title away from that all elusive 100.
Just play, ITF Shrewsbury or something,
Well, I don't
doesn't
think
count. Doesn't
no.
count. Okay, fine.
Play the Almaty. Why isn't he playing the Almaty Open?
All
Yeah.
the 250s. Surely he would just
Come to Stockholm. Yes.
Does that? Do you think that would cheapen the achievement? Do you think that's why? Maybe he's not
wants
going
a big
down
one.
that route. He wants it to be
Well,
one that means something.
I think analyse where Federer and Connors' titles have come from, because they're the two above him who have over 100, and I'm pretty sure Federer's probably got quite a few 250s in there as well. I don't think so. I think if he just purely wants to get up,
get a title,
the top one, I think he should just go for it. But it is strange that he's not won a title on the tour this season. But obviously he has won the Olympics, so like you said, that was the big one. And I don't think he's maybe as bothered about everything else. And like you said, Jannik Sinner totally deserved the Shanghai title. Was the best player of the tournament, and absolutely fair play. Another player who did pretty well though, Thomas Machak, who beat Alcaraz and Tommy Paul. He had a very good tournament. And David Goffin as well, making the quarterfinals. Joel, I know you're a big Goffin fan. Did that please you?
I mean, it was just funny when he beat Zverev in straight sets, and there's a great image of his camp and his coach just expressing just pure sort of delight and shock in equal measure at the same time for the result. But
they get paid that week, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I mean, it just shows, I think, with Goffin, all this stuff around kind of form is temporary, class is permanent, and I put David Goffin into that category. And I guess I would say, just on the sort of Novak Djokovic, Jannik Sinner debate, we've got to remember, like, Jannik Sinner's I was trying to do the math, he's 15 years younger, 14 years younger than Novak Djokovic. So, I know we talk about them on a level playing field, but the amount of the gap there is just
miles in the tank,
also massive.
Yeah, it really is when you think about it. And I also was going to say, one thing I thought was very amusing in that final was that Federer was having a great time sat next to Alcaraz.
Carlos Alcaraz.
Yeah, I've never really seen that before.
What do you think they were talking about?
Well, maybe he was getting some tips on how to beat Sinner in the future. But I mean, Djokovic was even joking with Federer, which is quite nice to see. But you don't often imagine that, you see your opponents from the other greats courtside and watching. It feels like as we talk about the transition away from Nadal playing, it feels like they'll all be courtside watching the next generation, which will be quite nice.
Yeah, it was quite a nice vibe to see that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fun.
In attendance, yeah, which is what we want to see. Let's look at Wuhan as well, because we had that take place last week, which was a WTA 1000 event, and Aryna Sabalenka won this event. It's her third title in Wuhan. She's actually unbeaten. She's never lost. She won previously in 2018 and 2019. So really clearly at home on these courts. But she didn't have it all her own way in the final. She did come up against Qinwen Zheng and she got through in 3 sets. But Zheng, didn't make it easy for her. Chris, tell us about the final and how Sabalenka was able to kind of get over the finish line in that third set, especially.
I was really impressed with Coco Gauff's level in that first set. I think that's probably as good a set of tennis as we've ever seen. I think we're used to Coco playing great tennis, but we're not necessarily always that used to see flawless tennis. Normally, it's the case that opponents can't get the ball past her because she's so great at moving, but she was firing on all cylinders. But I think that's where Sabalenka really does just show how good she is, because she does completely wipe the memory of the sets that she loses. And she has such a great attitude when it comes to coming back in those moments, or when she's a break up and then suddenly, she's a level pegging, or she's then down a break. She does come through so many of those encounters because she's such a great fighter. I think she is also able to adapt her game quite well and change some of the play that she's doing. And then eventually, I do think the double faults did catch up with Coco Gauff in that one in the semi-final. But then in the final, I think, again, it's a similar story where she's able to come through these 3-set matches because she has so much confidence. And I think probably the pressure of playing at home really did spur on Zheng at times during the tournament. But when it gets really close and really down to the wire, it's so hard when you want it that badly. And we've seen that before when, players would want that title more than anything. It's almost like a home slam in many ways. And not being able to get it is a disappointment there. But I thought it was great seeing the top players still playing so late in the season and really kind of committing to the Asian swing in a way that maybe the male players aren't enjoying it quite as much.
Yeah, I think Sabalenka, she's benefited somewhat from the semi-final opponent, Coco Gauff, and her final opponent.
And Iga maybe not being there, true.
Yeah, but also her opponent's serves have, helped her. Zheng at one point, I think, was serving at 42% first serves in. That's not going to win you titles if you're serving at that percentage.
That was across the whole match.
Which is, that's kind of not great. She did pretty well considering that statistic. But what I particularly liked, the Chinese press have dubbed Sabalenka the mountain. She's called the mountain that she's yet to overcome, referring to Zheng as, she took a set off Sabalenka for the first time, but she's never beaten her.
Is that
a
compliment?
Game of Thrones? Is this Game of Thrones?
Oh, the mountain, yes.
Yeah.
That is a character.
I don't know what they were kind of alluding to, but I mean, Joel, are you a fan of that nickname for Sabalenka, the mountain?
Well, I think the way I kind of inferred from it is that she's so solid now. Solid as a rock. I think, we've seen her, I think at times over her career, be very inconsistent, be a lot more hot and cold, but now she's just a presence and a force throughout the whole of a match, and we don't necessarily see those Sabalenka meltdowns maybe as much as we certainly used to. And I think that's where that comes from, in terms that she's becoming almost like the ultimate challenge. I know we've spoken about a lot, Swiatek being in this sort of final boss space, but to be honest, the more this season has gone on, the fact also that, as you said, Chris, Swiatek's not been present during the Asian swing, dropped out of Wuhan. Actually, I'd arguably say at the moment that if there is anyone who is the final boss in women's tennis, it's Sabalenka.
The final mountain to climb.
The final mountain to climb, exactly.
Just giving me Sound of Music vibes there. Yeah. The song Climb Every Mountain.
They're ascending.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the mountain is alive with the sound of Sabalenka.
That sound of Sabalenka.
Well, that's
some grunting.
A grunt. Yeah, it's going to be loud.
Yeah. How lovely. Maybe put a stage musical together with that. But it was quite a good week for Chinese women, because Jinju Wang also made it into the semi-finals. We had an all-Chinese semi-final, which was great. But yeah, Sabalenka, she's been putting these wins together. Her and Sinner keep winning together, it seems. They've won a lot of the same tournaments this year. So clearly a nice... partnership of sorts there. But talking about the WTA, we actually do have the field for the WTA finals now set. Sabalenka, of course, is involved. We've got Swiatek, Coco Gauff, Jasmine Paolini. Paolini's also in the doubles, incidentally. Elena Rybakina, Jessie Pegula, Qinwen Zheng, and Barbora Krejcikova, who is in because she won Wimbledon, although she was not in the top 8. So what do you make of the lineup that we've got? Who are your eyes on, just initially, now that we've got the kind of final field?
Well, the big question, isn't it? Will Rebecca play? And I think we all probably know the
answer. Is it the
final
field?
one.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, I think it's the unofficial. We've worked it all out, and all the numbers add up to this being the solution because Navarro did pull out of a tournament, so she can no longer catch Zhang. But I mean, the question that I wanted to pose to both of you was the fact that are we a fan of this new rule change, which is now in line with the ATP? That if you win a slam and you're within 10 and 20 in the race, then you get to qualify for the end of season finals. So controversially, this was not on the WTA, which meant that Emma Raducanu was denied the opportunity, I believe. So what do we think about this rule change? And if you're Emma Navarro, what do you think about the rule change?
Personally, I think I'm kind of for the slam component, but I just feel like there shouldn't be a ranking regulation. Like it should be
you win a slam, you're
anywhere,
in,
and if you win a slam, you're in. Because it seems a bit arbitrary to, what if you won a slam and you were 21 in the world? You wouldn't then get in. I just don't think that's particularly great.
2,000 points is a lot, isn't it, as well? So you probably would always be in that category anyway.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Maybe they've thought about that. But I mean, it's a shame for Emma Navarro because she's the one that's missing out because of this rule putting Krejcikova in. But like you said, Chris, I'm not sure Elena Rybakina is going to play. So I think Emma Navarro is likely to still get in on that. On that count.
I'm not sure. I quite like the idea of the finals just sort of recognizing the players who have been consistently collecting points throughout the season. I think that's what it should reflect. And I know that, this isn't new. We see this in the ATP finals. I feel like particularly in the doubles with, the like men's slam champions getting in almost, I feel like a little bit through the back door, somewhat. It feels to me a little bit, I think there's an argument to say it feels a little bit unfair that you could sort of make the cut based on one tournament versus other players who probably, maybe not necessarily won a slam, but have done it more consistently across, many tournaments. So yeah, I guess there are arguments both ways, but I personally, I think feel like it should recognize the consistency across the season, not just putting it all on the slam champions.
I think I'd also put the Olympics in there, that it would be a big shame not to see Zhang there, given the fact that the Olympics has previously at times had ranking points attached to it, and making the Australian Open final as well. It feels like if she were to miss out, you almost want there to be the right set of rules that mean that the form, no matter what sort of tournament it is reflected, whether that's doing great things on the Billie Jean King Cup, for example, where they played with having ranking points for United Cup, all those sorts of things. You just want the best players of the year to be there. But in my mind, that would be the slam winners and the Olympics for me personally.
I guess one thing I will say is I think the lineup, regardless, is fantastic.
It's good.
It's going to be in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. And to me, it's like there's no excuses. This is like the best lineup possible, arguably. So there should be an audience, there should be a crowd, and that has been a talking point a lot.
There's definitely money though, so that's at least something for the WTA, right? Yeah. That this is funded and they will not be making a loss on this one as opposed to previous iterations. But the crowd is a question that we'll have to see, and the legacy for women's tennis.
But you cannot say with this lineup that the crowd didn't come because the lineup wasn't very good. So I'm glad that's sort of.
They might not come because they're not allowed to drive there themselves if they're female. So I think we have to be we have to be optimistic for the lasting impact of what will happen there. I'm not sure we're going to get full stadiums of tennis fans.
No,
I hope it's got atmosphere. Well, it remains to be seen.
Happy to go. Yeah. Please fly us out there. No, I'm joking. Not sure we're free.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break now. Do let us know, listeners, what your thoughts are on how the WTA getting that final 8 down. I mean, maybe they could just pull the names out of a hat. That's another alternative.
Bring back the elite trophy.
Yes, and Zhuhai, as you said earlier, Joel.
The second best trophy. But yeah, listeners, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. But do join us in the second half, where we'll be discussing Wimbledon's announcement that line judges will sadly be removed for the first time from 2025. As well as moving the singles finals to a later time slot. We'll also be looking at what's coming up ahead on the ATP and WTA tours and Chris is heading to Stockholm next week. So we'll be taking a little preview of that as well. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And as always, it's time for another game. Fortunately, we don't have money resting on this one, so no one stands to lose 86k.
Oh, goodness.
But Joel, you're the quiz master for today.
I am indeed the quiz master today. And I'm glad we got both of you back for a classic Tennis Weekly par for the course.
No mysterious player this week, like last week.
No mysterious player. No me kind of sweating and just like waiting for Chris to put me out.
When you guess Kristina Mladenovic on the 5th question, you're in trouble.
Yes. But yes, I do have a par for the courts head-to-head for you as well as for our listeners. And your question is this. And you might have had a sneaking guess that this could have been coming, but with the fact that Wuhan has now finished, we have now had all the WTA 1000 tournaments in the 2024 season. And I've counted this personally. I hope I'm right. There are 12 players who have made the finals of a WTA singles 1000 tournament this season. And I would like you between yourselves, I would like you to name as many as you can. Don't worry, I do have a tie break if it does go to 6-all, which I feel like it could do, but I don't know.
Feel like it. I'm not sure actually on this one. I'm just going to go down the top 10.
Do you just? I will give you the names of the tournaments just so I can.
No.
I don't think Chris needs them, but
okay. You don't want the names of the tournaments?
I don't want anything that might jog someone's memory, Joel. You know.
Well, you're only playing me, Chris. Not
true. Actually, that's
the
true.
World.
If it was Joel,
that's fine. We don't need the names of the tournaments. We'll proceed.
We're gonna go hardcore.
We can tell you the names of the tournaments they won, maybe.
Wow. Chris
actually, this is very
leveling
unpleasant.
it up.
I'm very sorry,
leveling it up.
Joel needs to pick things that are, this is my bread and butter, the WTA.
Okay, I'm not gonna name the tournaments, but there are 12 players in total.
Right.
I think I've got a mountain to climb here. Chris is the mountain of the quizzing.
The mountain you have not climbed yet. You have actually. You have beaten me before, so anything can happen.
Okay.
Right.
Shall I go first?
Yes.
Go on, Kim. You get to go first.
Iga Swiatek.
Correct.
If that's not correct, I'll eat.
Could you tell me the events?
Events is a clue, I think.
Rome. Doha. Indian Wells. Miami?
Very close. Very close.
No.
So Swiatek was in Doha, Indian Wells, Madrid, and Rome.
Oh, okay.
So 4 finals. But yes, correct answer.
Right. I'm going to go for Danielle. Oh, no. Oh, but I've said it now. Danielle Collins. I should have saved her.
You've got niche early.
Why didn't we just say the people who've just won? Danielle Collins, who won in Miami.
Correct. Danielle Collins is on the list. 1 apiece.
Aryna Sabalenka, who won in Wuhan, and probably another one earlier in the year.
Very good. Yes, correct answer. Sabalenka is on the list. Wuhan, Rome, and Madrid. Those pair of finals against Swiatek. Yes, and Cincinnati as well.
She won the title. Yeah, she did in Cincinnati. Well, this is getting a bit more tricky now. I think Pegula won in. Was it Toronto for the women this year?
Pegula is a correct answer. Yes, she had a great North American hardcourt swing. Toronto and Cincinnati was a final.
For the final, yes, indeed.
So 2 apiece.
How many have we got, Joel? Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Jin Wenjing. Correct answer. Yes, of course. Jane in the final in Wuhan.
Did we say Coco Gauff already?
Haven't.
Oh, well, I'll say Coco Gauff now. I think she won Beijing.
Correct. Yes, Coco Gauff is on the list.
Well, so this might be a draw, Kim.
That is nice. 3 apiece. So
you're
halfway there to getting 100%.
Surely we've said more than that.
Oh, I'm panicking now because I've got 2 names in my head, but I'm not 100% sure. Paula Badosa? as a finalist? Is that? I know she's had a good year, but I think that might be wrong.
Oof, Kim.
Paula
Oh, no.
Badosa. That's an incorrect answer, Kim.
Oh.
You are out.
She
You
did win
are
Washington though,
gone.
so
Oh,
But,
close.
But Kim, we've got to remember it is 3-3. It is
Oh, I've
3-3.
got to get the
Chris
fourth.
does
Might
need
get
to
one
give
wrong.
me.
Yeah.
He needs to give me a correct. I feel like it's a forlorn. A foregone conclusion. But Chris,
It's forlorn, yes, as well.
it's
for
forlorn
Kim.
as well.
Yeah, very much
forlorn.
so.
I'm
Yeah.
lost.
What name are you going to give me to put to send Kim packing?
I'm gonna twist the knife here. I'm going to go for Anna Kalinskaya as the finalist in Dubai.
He wanted to flex. He wanted to flex. Yes, Kalinskaya. Correct answer.
What were your other names,
Dubai
Kim?
Finalist.
I was thinking of saying Karolina Mukova, but
you could have
she
said
wa-
Mukova.
oh, for
yeah, she did Beijing.
Beijing final against.
I forgot
Coco
about
Gauff.
that. The recent ones sometimes I forget about. I know Paulini won Dubai.
Very good.
Oh,
that
of
was
course.
against
Yeah.
Kalinskaya
Yeah.
in Dubai. Yes.
And then
a big name you have not said so
Rybakina?
far. Very good. Rybakina.
it's
Doha.
been so long since she's sort of been playing.
the last time she played probably
and
was
also Miami. She lost
Yeah.
to Collins in that final.
The only other one I can think of, who did Jessie Pegula play in the final of Toronto? It was
Wasn't
that
it
is the
Coco?
one missing.
no, it was an American. Was it
Haddad Maya.
Anisimova?
Haddad Maya.
It was Anisimova. Very
Oh.
good, Chris. So there you go.
Well done.
I think that is
Honestly.
it. Oh, wait, hang on. There is one more name. Perhaps the most surprising name, apart from Anisimova.
It's not Dollarhide and Guadalajara, but that was last year.
So you've got Sabalenka, Zheng,
Which
Gauff,
tournament was it?
Mukova, Pegula, Anisimova, Collins,
Ooh.
Bakina,
Which tournament?
Paulini, Kalinskaya, Swiatek. I'm talking Indian Wells finalist.
So lost to Swiatek.
It is.
Give us a clue.
Surprising, you say. So not a top player.
Surprising because of her form, I would say more.
Oh, is it going to be like a Sakkari?
Andreescu.
Maria
Sakkari.
Sakkari.
Andreescu in a
Oh.
final. She did have a final of Miami one time.
Maria
didn't she? Yeah.
Sakkari, Indian Wells finalist.
Well, she's ended
That
her
is
season
surprising.
now,
Yeah.
so that's a shame for her. But yes, what a
There you go.
final.
Thank you, Joel. That's been very educational. Well done, Chris. Still at the top of the mountain.
Told you, don't feel the pressure on these things, Kim.
Do you know what my tiebreaker question was going to be? Can you name any of the doubles pairings that have been Masters champions? But
Irani Paulini.
maybe I'll leave that for another time. Irani Paulini would have been correct, Kim. Yes.
Ooh, I don't think
Yes.
Dabrowski's got one this year.
No. Yeah, with Routcliffe. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, well, we got one
there we
each.
go.
We
There
keep
we go. We're
going.
going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there. We're going to move
Yeah,
on.
that's a
Oh.
teaser.
Right, we'll move on to the mailbag because Denise has got in touch with us on email. So thank you very much, Denise. Lovely to hear from you. She's titled this "Men Behaving Badly" and has
I
said
love
that from Zverev to Tiafoe to Tsitsipas, ATP players are behaving badly, and it feels like the same poor umpire decisions from earlier in the season have made players feel that they have the authority to do and say whatever they please on the court, no matter how abusive they are. Does the ATP need to crack down on these types of outbursts? Because in some of these instances, the umpires did not make bad decisions at all, but have still faced abusive language and outbursts from some of the most celebrated players in the game. You never saw this sort of thing from Rafa or Roger, and they are some of the greatest that ever played. So where does the entitlement come from with the likes of Zverev, Tiafoe and Tsitsipas? What a great question.
Denise, yes.
So much to unpick there. I think
Yeah.
entitlement is such a good starting point, because I do think some of these outbursts, for me, is showing this entitlement that they feel they can act however they want and get away with it, which should not be the case.
You really don't like this sort of thing, and we don't stand for it. But I think, Kim, you've always been consistent. It's just no place for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, normally it's like when we're talking about Nick Kyrgios, but obviously he hasn't been on playing for a
You
while.
can't blame him
so
this time.
I feel like other players are just filling his role at the moment. I mean, I'm kind of using the analogy of if I was unhappy about something at work in my day job, I wouldn't just swear at my manager or rant and rave or behave like this in a meeting and like throw a chair around or like throw my pen at someone. Like that would be instant dismissal.
It
And
would
yet,
be.
why are these people in their place of work, the tennis court, why should they be allowed to do what they're doing and behave in this way? Because in every other aspect of life, if someone was to do that in the workplace, they would not be able to get away with it or have this sort of entitlement. So I
Such
think
a good point, isn't it? Because when they have so much money, I mean, what is a £60,000 fine that Francis Tiafoe might face? It might be his prize money for that tournament, potentially. Not a great dent for him, but I think that one was the one that particularly shocked me. I think he's
effing and blinding at the umpire.
Really, he was literally swearing at the umpire repeatedly, and he really didn't have a leg to stand on there, in the sense that it was about the fact it was the only thing you can say for what is an indefensible, was that it was about a toss of a ball, for anyone who didn't see it. And he looked at the shot clock, and they're trialing a new shot clock, which means that it starts automatically. So the umpires don't even start it. So yelling abuse at the umpire, they're not even the one pressing go. So that made no sense. But maybe there was some confusion about the lack of time that he had. But he saw the shot clock, sort of threw the ball up in the air without any intention of hitting it. It was almost like to see if he could get away with it. And then he didn't. And then the abuse came when he shook hands at the net. And it was really shocking to hear someone who is normally such a jovial character be that abusive. And that is what it is, unfortunately. There's no other word that you can use for it. And there should be really big repercussions, or even a suspension for yelling at someone like that. I mean, Kim, you mentioned you'd get fired for it. This is like a slap on the wrist, and then your fans will still defend you online, which I think is also not great. But that was a bad look. I was shocked by that one. I think Zverev and Tsitsipas is not that surprising to me in terms of the nature of those things. But I mean, Zverev really said that it was a bounce again, Joel. I mean, what did you make of the Zverev incident?
Yeah, not great, and as you said, not sadly not surprising. I feel like these aren't one-offs. They're really kind of, I think, becoming endemic of the ATP tour, and it's sad because I think you look at some of these players, and they are, whether they like it or not, they're role models. I think to fans, in the crowd, on TV, they're seen all around the world, and I get that some people like this sort of thing and see this as sort of entertainment, and it's content that drives views, etc. But I think it comes from a very negative place, and again, I don't think it's right. And for me, the way I think it's being addressed is not right either. As you say, I think like prize money fines isn't right. I'd actually maybe go to ranking points or things that are actually going to hurt these players. Because if you really want to kind of, as I say, make a behavior change, I think you've got to be quite like hard about it and force the issue. And I don't think money is the way to do that. And perhaps either, as I say, banning from tournaments, or as I say, reducing ranking points, I think should be, they should be options on the table.
Well, I guess that's also where the entitlement comes from in terms of what Denise is asking from. It does come with, unfortunately, with money, and it comes with affluence in this space, because you can afford to behave this badly because you can pay the consequences in a way that you can't afford to lose a job for some people. And I think that is where some of it comes from. I also do think that potentially some of the outbursts, for players like Zverev saying he didn't even want to basically be in Shanghai. He's had a long season. He's been working all year, and that you can't, like, he's come all this way and you're going to take this from him, and he didn't even deserve the point anyway. So that is entitlement on another scale. It does beg the question, are the men just worse behaved? And we don't see these same sort of incidents on the women's side. And is it an ATP problem is the question I was also going to say.
It's funny because, it's not, we've seen outbursts like this, this is part and parcel of tennis. But I do think like the era we're in at the moment, like, as I say, one of its defining traits is the anger. I'm like, are we in the anger era? Because it's not just one or a couple of players. We're seeing this from quite a few players. And I don't know whether it's, it might be to do with the pressures that they're under, and it's the way that they like to express things. We obviously might not like it, but it's the way that they maybe deal with it. And it maybe they see it as a good way of getting it out their system. But I think from the outside, it doesn't reflect well on the product. And we should be looking at kind of gamesmanship and showmanship as opposed to, as I say, bad behavior on a tennis court.
Or, I mean, the other thing that's bad about it is that these players will then be on the posters for the next events they play, and they've just behaved probably in some of the worst way you've seen a sports player behave in years, in some instances, in terms of swearing at somebody in that manner. So I think that it is a big shame. And I think that Denise is right to point out the fact that Rafa and Roger and these sorts of players, they never did it. They never relied on it. I think that is a definite generational difference. Obviously, outbursts do happen at different times, but it does feel like it's definitely more now.
I guess my final question on it, though, is does every role model need a villain? In wrestling, for example, every face, which is like a crowd pleaser, needs a heel, which is essentially the enemy or the villain. And we've got our faces, I'd say, in terms of Carlos Alcaraz, certainly Jannik Sinner. I know there's going to be people talking about the doping
question
suspension.
Marks there,
question mark, yes, but
a hero? What? No,
maybe not hero, but
that's a question for next week.
Do you feel like it's actually quite a nice balance in a weird sort of way to actually have these types of hot-headed characters on the tour, to sort of keep it interesting and have that contrast there?
I don't. I think
that's to pieces.
I think that's searching for a justification. I mean, imagine if you had a school class of kids and they were like nice, quiet, well-behaved kids at the front, and then you had people just effing and blinding at the back. Like, that's not going to help anyone because it's a disruptive environment. It's affecting those that are behaving, and I don't think that's. Yes, there's yin and yang, but not when one of the yin or the yang is.
I tried to justify it, listeners. I tried, but it doesn't.
No, I appreciate.
It's not all
efforts.
Netflix, though, is it? It's not like Netflix where Zverev tried to paint out Medvedev as the baddie. Remember? So,
do you think the coaches are just not they just don't focus on it because they just think it's part of the game?
Well, who pays them? The player. Yeah. So you're going to tell them what they want to hear. Oh, that umpire decision was awful. But one thing I will say, kind of again to finish this one on, is I do feel like they never really feel like they get the closure from the umpires. So, like, if the umpire does make a bad decision, do they get like an apology from the umpire?
Sorry.
All that, you know what I mean? But like, I guess you've lost the earnings, you've lost the ranking points if it does make a big impact. But again, it's all about your mental fortitude and resilience in those moments that allows you to keep perspective. Because you look at people like Kalinskaya, there was a VAR of a ball that did clearly bounce and she didn't get the point, and she kept her cool, and obviously she lost that match, but she behaved perfectly fine in that to ask the question. So even when someone knows they're right, there's a video to know they're right, the women still behave better than the men. So they've got to change their ways.
Though, like, there can be, a formal complaints procedure. Like, you can take it off court, after the match, put in a formal complaint,
request the umpire doesn't umpire you again.
Yeah, like, do it in a professional, proper way, like with due process.
Yeah, imagine what they're like when they're not on camera. These people. It's shocking.
I know. I mean, I just think the fines aren't enough. It needs to be suspension, ranking point, loss. It needs to really hit them where it hurts. I don't want to see this behavior. I can understand how frustrating you must get. You want to lash out, but that's just, public platform.
Smash a racket if you need to.
Models.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, that's that. I mean, I don't even like that.
No, neither do I. But don't smash it on yourself like Rublev. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kim, we're going to move on to it right now. But do you think the more technology becomes part of tennis, it's actually harder to maybe like it will lead to less of these angry outbursts because it's a lot harder in theory to
swear at VAR.
Well, they might argue with the robot now.
Yeah.
We'll have some like robot ref in years to come sorting them out. But that brings us nicely onto the news that Wimbledon have announced they're getting rid of line judges from next year's championships. So they will be moving over to the electronic line calling that the US Open and Australian Open have already started using in the last couple of years. Obviously, most of the ATP tour is going to be doing this next year, and the WTA is following in the same way as well. So it's not really a surprise. They're kind of just following the pattern of where most tournaments are going. But I guess some people are quite sad because it's a very traditional thing to have the line judges. I assume Ralph Lauren maybe are quite sad because they do the uniforms and the outfits of the line judges. So who's going to be wearing their stuff? But we'll happily wear it.
Yes, please send it our way. Imagine if we all turn up as line judges next year at Wimbledon.
We'll be honorary line judges. Yeah. But Joel, are you sad about this, or can you understand Wimbledon's decision to embrace innovation?
I can, and I think I think you look at Wimbledon and how they have innovated over the years. They've done it gracefully. They've done it well. It's it's very considered. But at the same time, I think Wimbledon is a traditional tournament. I think that's why so many fans go to see it. The tickets have been in high demand this year. We've been hearing, it's why players love to play it. And I think removing line umpires removes a tradition. It's been going for 147 years. If that's not a tradition, then I don't know what is. And regardless of if it's going to be more efficient and correct, I think removing a tradition that is a cornerstone and a heritage of your brand and your identity, regardless of how much consultation and consideration there has been, it's a very sad loss. And I think you think about kind of the people involved. This is their, might be their role, their job, their way of getting involved in Wimbledon, and you've removed that for a fairly big chunk of people. So I think I can understand it, but I think it's very sad. And I actually think if you did a survey and asked fans, and maybe we should do this on our Twitter and see what the debate is. But I personally, I would be surprised if people are in favor of this decision.
I feel the same. I was kind of gutted when I saw the news because it's such a core memory for me, seeing them with their lovely white caps, walking around, taking their place, with the blazers on. And even when they updated the uniforms, it was such a big deal. I think it just really adds a touch of class to the whole tournament. But again, and it is not just, a spectacle. It is also a sporting event where, I mean, there are inaccuracies of line judges. We see it all the time. But at the same time, the flip side of that is that I love a challenge. And I think the British public love a challenge. It really does get the atmosphere going because it is entertainment as well as being, as I've said, a sporting contest where a lot of money is on the line and everything. But at the same time, that's a special moment when you clap, you get to see it, one challenge remaining or no challenges remaining, and everyone is just so, the gasp goes out around centre court. So that is a shame because I would have liked there to be at least one more tournament where the people who have historically done it had the chance to do it again, have a send-off. They could do a nice ceremony and invite all the people who've done it before to come. I think there are really nice ways of doing it. And I feel like this felt like they were trying to sort of brush it under the carpet by releasing the news and maybe a bit of a quiet period in the tennis season so that maybe it didn't necessarily get picked up as much, because I think this is a real shame. But Joel, having said that, they will have to be on site in case the technology fails.
Great. So they're back up to the robots. Back up.
They've got maybe the outfit.
They just can sit there and watch tennis and just wait until they're.
Well, they might be in the crowds then. Maybe we should volunteer.
Have a cup of tea,
Kim, I'm not going to lie.
Cake.
If I'm one of these line umpires waiting around, I'm secretly going undercover into the IT. No, into the IT where this technology is housed.
You're going to pour a coffee on the system. Yeah.
I'm putting the plug on the system. Be like, I want my job back.
Yeah.
Well,
a union. Did they have a union?
There are other traditions I'd rather Wimbledon kept, such as like the strawberries and cream, the no sort of advertising, and that to me that's more important. But I agree with your perspectives as well. Another thing that is changing is that they're changing the time of the Wimbledon singles finals. So the men's and the ladies singles finals on the Saturday and Sunday previously started at 2 p.m. UK time. They're moving to 4 p.m. UK time. The justification being that this would fit better with an audience in America, sort of New York kind of time. They'd have a bigger audience there. So, more viewers, more money, essentially. And the doubles finals, which previously were after the singles finals, they have a bit more certainty because they'll be on first. I quite like this change, actually. I think it makes sense. I'm not beholden to it being at 2 p.m. 4 p.m. is probably slightly better for a UK audience as well. What do you guys think?
I mean, Chris? I quite like the fact that they've done this because I really miss the mixed doubles final being, at the last match played. I think we did get a later mixed doubles final. Was it this year? Because of the scheduling changes, it meant that it wasn't played so early in the tournament. I think it's really nice to have sort of late night doubles, but at the same time, if these events aren't going to get, the same sort of that tradition's gone. I'm ready to embrace a new tradition. That's my short answer. And I think that more people watching tennis is always great because the numbers weren't fantastic for the US Open men's final. So I think TV audiences have to be considered because there's a lot of money these tournaments make. And TV audiences are where a lot of that advertising money does come from globally.
And they've got the Hill in New York, haven't they? So it probably
They
makes
do
it
now.
a bit
Nicole
better for people
Scherzinger was there this
going to
year,
the Hill.
apparently. Yeah.
She was singing there. Yeah, she's on Broadway at the moment in Sunset Boulevard. But anyway, this isn't the musical theatre
No,
podcast.
it isn't. It isn't.
As much as we did mention The Sound of Music earlier. But
Yeah,
Joel,
it is
what
quite
do you
musical
think?
this week.
I guess the only kind of maybe practical concern is that like that could mean tennis goes later into the evening and you're bringing in, situations like using the roof more frequently. And yes, the roof is there to be used, but again, there's talk around, the fact that again, traditions, this is an outdoor tournament by default. And are you incurring on that if you move to a later time that maybe is more naturally going to go into an evening slot where that, like to say, maybe the roof does come into play. So I sort of understand it from that sort of audience viewership perspective. I think it is quite nice that the doubles teams, they will now have that certainty of and not feel just like the sort of after event after the final.
Whoever fancies staying, it's a bit like that sometimes, isn't it?
I guess it's a bit sad for people who are looking for resale because you're not maybe going to get that as much anymore because typically before,
that's a great point.
People would go for the men's final, leave, and then fans could get in on the resale for the doubles. That might not necessarily be a thing as much. So I can see why fans might not be as thrilled about it.
Well, I hope people still turn up for the doubles final prior and they don't just rock up.
That's very true. Very true.
We will see. Let's see come June, July next year. Let's think about slightly sooner in the schedule, though, because we've got 5 tournaments this week. The ATP are heading back to Europe, but the WTA are staying in Asia. We've got 2 WTA events in Ningbo and Japan. And then we've got the Almaty Open in Kazakhstan for the ATP, the Nordic Open in Stockholm, and the European Open as well. Let's start with the Nordic Open because, Chris, you are going to it with our producer, Aryna, and you're going to be chatting with tournament director Magnus Norman, very excitingly, I believe.
That is very exciting. We are actually playing at his academy. We're going to have a hit at the Good to Great Academy. So we will keep you posted. We're hopefully going to be recording from there.
Access all areas, Tennis Weekly.
Best behaviour, please.
I know. I was thinking about I can maybe get you some merch. I was thinking courtesy of Mr. Magnus Norman. But he's there on official duties, although that is where he is based because Stan is playing in the tournament. So he will be going between the Stockholm Open and the Good to Great Academy, as will we. Which
very
will be
exciting.
fun. It's a good lineup, though.
Very strong top 4 seeds. You got Rublev, Rude, Dimitrov, and Tommy Paul. I think that's pretty strong for a 250.
Yeah, and you've got Nakashima there for Kim, so she might be interested. And the usual customary wildcards for Leo Borg, of course. He's already out of the doubles, but through qualifying, Jacob Fernley is actually playing on the ATP Tour this week. He's making the step up.
What a season. What a season he has had.
I'm excited to see him at ATP level because he's done quite a lot at challenger level. So now I think it's time to hopefully get some wins on the main tour.
He's got to be up there as one of the breakthrough
one
stars.
of the biggest breakthroughs of all time, actually, in terms of the rankings rise. It's been monumental. And I mean, it's so great to see that. And I love the images of him and Jack Draper when they were younger. And just seeing the fact that just because one of you got there first doesn't mean the other one can't.
I've just seen Berrettini also in the draw. Big question there is going to be who he walks out with. Are they going to be more receptive to him than it was in Asia?
I have to try a different tactic.
Well, he has won, so maybe I'll offer Aryna to walk out with him if needed.
I'm sure she'd love that. We've got the European Open in Belgium as well. Alex de Minaur is the top seed there with Tsitsipas as the second seed, who's not in our good books at the moment for his behaviour. Let's hope he behaves in Antwerp. Any thoughts on this one? Who do you reckon's going to walk away with that title come Sunday?
Oh, it's tricky, isn't it? I think I'd love de Minaur to get to the end of season finals. I think he has been a bit derailed by injury, and this is obviously a play to make the ATP finals. And so the players who are still committing at this stage, you want to see them do well. So for me, I think it would be good to see him make a run. And then elsewhere, I can see a Lehechka coming through.
Yeah.
What about a home favourite? Do we have a Belgium in the mix? Oh, we do.
Well, there's quite a few Belgian wildcards,
Zizou
actually.
is in the mix.
Yeah, Zizou Bergs, but also Alexander Blocks and Rafael Collignon.
No, David
Never heard of
Goffin.
them.
I've just
No
sung
David
the praises
Goffin.
of
What?
David Goffin.
Get
Must
him in
have been
there.
to do with the entry. Must have been to do with the entry list.
David Blocks. Wow, that's a name ending in an X.
Yeah, I
His
thought they
favourite return,
mistakenly
a
put the
block.
X
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, might be a mistake.
Yes. Oh, and Gilles Arnaud Bailey. Yeah, lots of local Belgians, so very exciting there. The Almaty Open in Kazakhstan, which, you know, we were thinking, why is Novak Djokovic not playing this? He could have racked up his 100th title here. But Tiafoe is in attendance here, also not in our good books. Let's hope he behaves. Tabilo, second seed. Hachnov and Cerundolo, Francisco, that is. Thomas Machak, I think, as the fifth seed, could do very well here.
Okay.
Dan Evans qualified, so he'll be trying to get his ranking back up again. And then there's a few other players like, Chorich. I mean, he's really dropped off the map a little bit, but he has upset Marajan already. So this could be a good chance for some players who maybe haven't had the best season to pick up some ranking points heading into next year.
Absolutely. And then on the WTA side, would you have an event in China?
Not so many big tournaments. We've had 2000s in a row, 500. It's stacked.
It is stacked. Qinwen Zheng is there, and Krejcikova, Haddad Maia, Kasatkina, Badosa. Quite a big field, actually. It's a 500 event, so it's a decent field there. Any thoughts on this one at all?
Surely Mukova versus Zheng round 2.
Balta Irani.
Oh, yes.
Oh, where's that? I haven't spotted that one.
Top of the draw. Winner plays Haddad Maia.
Joel, you're going to have to renew your subscription to Sky for that one.
Come on, Katie Balta. I think she could, she could get a few wins under her belt here, perhaps.
Sorry, we didn't talk about it. Mira Andreeva's in this draw. She played her sister and lost. I thought Mira was the better one.
That did happen.
Yeah, that was surprising in Wuhan.
With
tennis
siblings,
world is broken.
Siblings, things get difficult, don't they?
It's reversed. Yeah. Erica got the better of her, but Mira has already won her first round in this event. We've also got the Osaka event, so that's not Naomi Osaka. It is the event in Osaka in Japan, where Katie Volley-Nets is the second seed, and we don't have a first seed. Someone must have
we've lost the top seed.
I'm not sure who dropped out here. I'm not going to lie. But
could it be Naomi?
I don't know, actually.
But Andreescu's there on a wild card.
Andreescu's
there on a wild card.
Elise Mertens is there. What more do you want?
Exactly. Book a flight.
But yes, we'll be rounding all of those up next week, as always. And listeners, we'll be looking forward to Chris and Alina being in Stockholm and all the lovely content you're going to bring us, hopefully.
Some good to great content from the Good to Great Academy, hopefully.
Yes. Looking forward to that, seeing what Chris gets up to in Stockholm. But for now, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from the ATP and WTA tours.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all major podcasting platforms out there. So if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as well as a like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X. And the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. You can purchase Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/tennisweeklypodcast. As always, you can email the show tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or do check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next week for another tour catch up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.